Okay, good evening, everybody. So, in the last class, we talked about dependency injection and how we do the dependency injection using Spring. So, we defined all the beans in Spring config XML, and we also defined those beans, how these beans are connected, right? Every class that you want Spring to manage the lifecycle for is a bean, Spring Manager bean. That's what we call it. Every Spring Manager bean is defined in Spring config XML, and also its wiring. When I say wiring, this is what I mean. So here, traveler 2 depends on vehicle, and also traveler 2 depends on name. It's just a string. This is just a string, right? So traveler depends on vehicle. So one component depends on another component. That is what I mean by wiring. So this dependency, the traveler depends on vehicle, that bean wiring. So creating the vehicle class and give it to traveler. All of this is done by Spring. And it is wiring the beans. You have to specify how the beans need to be wired in Spring config XML. All of this is good. Okay, everyone started liking it. If you go back to history after Spring got introduced from that book. So quickly we realized that in a lot of projects, there are like hundreds, if not thousands of beans existed. All of those have been provided in Spring config XML. And quickly XML was getting bloated. For every single problem, we go to XML. Makes sense. And then also, earlier, so now we have this XML, right? So if I fat fingered my class name, it didn't used to tell us that this class is bad. A lot of IDEs, even today, they will not try to identify what you have in these double quotes because it's a string for them. Spring uses the reflection to find out this particular class, to load this particular class into JVM, and to instantiate that particular class. So all of these fancy IDEs, including Eclipse, did not have this safety net, this checking. Now we do. We do it because we are using Spring Source Tool Suite, Spring Tool Suite, STS. So STS is tightly coupled with Spring, and then Spring developers have actually written these plugins for Eclipse. Working. But we struggled with all of this big XML, giant XML, and it will fail. If I fat fingered, it would only fail when I run the Spring, the whole Spring container. When I bootstrap it, that is when it fails that. Hey, I'm sorry, I can't find a class called TRAVLLER2. Right? So, and JDK5 came into picture at that time, and then Spring quickly adopted it and introduced another way of wiring these beans using annotations. What it says is that also there are two concepts actually. There is a concept called auto wiring. There is a concept called auto wiring. Okay, sorry for breaking that voice. So,
No problem.
sorry. So, I was talking about annotations. So JDK5 introduced this concept called annotations, and then Spring quickly adopted it. We were also frustrated with the these big XMLs, and then thousands of beans configured, and then each bean depends on various beans. All of this wiring is manually done. So Spring introduced this concept called auto wiring. What it means is that if you have a component, let's say this component depends on this component. Right? Let's say your service depends on your DAO. Obviously, the biggest goal here is that code to interface, right? So somehow, let's say that the service class and DAO class, both of them are Spring managed beans, meaning the instantiation to destruction is managed by Spring. You will not do new service, you will not do new DAO. It will all be done by Spring. So Spring service has a dependency on DAO. So all you do in your service class is that you tell Spring that you depend on DAO, and you don't need to define these beans. You don't need to provide explicit wiring. It will automatically recognizes that, okay, there is a customer service, let's say, okay, and then there is a customer DAO. So there is a implementation class called customer DAO JDBC impl. Just define your service bean, you define your this bean, customer DAO JDBC impl as a Spring managed bean. You just code to interface. You just say that, hey, I want the appropriate DAO to be automatically wired into me. I'm not going to specify which implementation do I need. Because a lot of times there is only one implementation for your interface. So in that case, you don't need to specify it. Spring automatically scans because it just loaded all of these beans into bean factory, right? I mean, your bean factory loaded all of these beans into itself. It knows what are all the beans it is managing the life cycle for. So it knows that, hey, I have a customer DAO JDBC impl, which is of the type customer DAO. When you say customer service depends on customer DAO, it will look in the whole bean world and finds out that this is of the type DAO interface. What I mean by that is this class implements this interface. Say that, hey, let me inject this DAO implementation into this guy, into this service class. So let me inject into this one. So I will inject this DAO into this service class. So Spring can do the wiring automatically. You don't need to specify that, hey, I depend on customer DAO JDBC impl. No, you don't need to. Spring actually does auto wiring pretty smartly. It has its own algorithm to do it. First, it does by auto wiring by type, and then it does auto wiring by name, the bean ID, and etc. What I mean by the most important thing is auto wiring by type. What I mean by auto wiring by type is if your customer service depends on customer DAO interface, it will look how many implementation classes do I have in my bean world. there is only one that implements customer DAO, then it will inject that particular DAO to customer service automatically. And that is the case for 90% of the times. 90% of the times we have one implementation, one interface. Okay. But for very good design reasons that we talked in the last class, we don't want to get my own dependency. Spring will auto wire them. You don't need to wire them up manually. But with the introduction of annotation driven injection, the things have been made more simple. So with JDK5, annotations concept has been introduced in JDK5, and Spring quickly take it. So what it said is that, hey, I know you guys don't like XML that much, right? So rather you prefer annotations, agree, because you have compile time, type safety. You're not putting those things anymore in like a magic in double quotes, right? You can just say that. Let me explain this way. You have your web layer, you have your service layer, and you have your data layer, right? Data layer is DAO, service layer is service classes, and web layers are your not really servlets, but web controllers. That's what we call it. We'll talk about it. Generic components, right? Any other generic Java components that probably do not fall under any of these categories, right? So what Spring said is, hey, all of your Spring managed beans, you don't have to clutter them in XML. You don't need to define that in XML. All you need to do is that whatever your bean is, let's say your customer DAO JDBC impl, right? Let's say your customer DAO JDBC impl, you just annotate your class with one annotation or one of the annotations. Spring has provided some standard annotations. What those annotations are? So it asked that, hey, all DAOs, you annotate them with at repository. There is an annotation called at repository. It doesn't have any meaning. I mean, Spring has its meaning, but your Java compiler or Java runtime environment just ignores it. Only your Spring container is going to care about it. You annotate all the DAOs with at repository, and your Spring automatically scans them and finds that, oh, this is a Spring managed beans. Okay, that means I need to manage the lifecycle for this guy. Meaning, if somebody depends on this guy, I will give them with auto wiring. All the service classes, you annotate them with at service. All web controllers, you annotate them with at controller. And any other classes that you want Spring to manage, it doesn't fall under controller, it doesn't fall under service, it doesn't fall under repository. You annotate those classes with another annotation called at component. So what Spring does is, Spring scans all the classes. I mean, there also you will specify, hey, I want you to scan the classes within these packages. Okay? And then it looks for these annotations at repository, at service, at controller, at component annotations. And if anyone depends on it, let's say there is a customer service. Let's say there is a customer service and customer DAO. Let's say this guy is at service annotated. This guy is annotated with at repository. Now you just say that customer service, I depend on customer DAO, and Spring will automatically inject it. You just say that, you just tell Spring your intention that, hey, I want this one to be injected automatically using auto wiring. And our concept that they introduced actually made our life much, much, much easier is we talked about constructor injection. All of these concepts you will walk out today with clear mind. Don't worry if it's warm on, if it's not if you're not fully understanding it, because once I show you an example, everything will, you can draw the picture, you can connect the dots, don't worry. So we talked about the constructor injection, we talked about the setter injection, right? Spring has introduced in the recent years, recent meaning about I don't know, 6-7 years, good 6-7 years, it introduced another kind of injection called field level injection. Field, what is a field? Field is an instance variable, right? You just say that, I'll show you, your traveler, right? Let me take this example. See here, your traveler, you just say, you just tell Spring that you depend on vehicle. You don't need this kind of constructor. You don't need constructor, you don't need setter, you don't need anything. This field, just by looking at this field, it will understand automatically that, okay, traveler depends on this vehicle. But you need to tell Spring that, hey, can you please automatically inject for me, or can you please automatically wire for me? So I don't have these annotations. So what we need to do is we need to put this guy in POM. What do we have so far? We have Spring context. Let this guy Spring. Sorry, I'm looking for the Maven repository. No. Nope. I have the Spring context, and where is the annotation? Nope. Spring context. Let's see. There are stereotyped Oh, stereotype. Where is this guy? Yeah. So we have this guy. So let's see. So this is we have at component. Then we'll say that at autowide. Okay, I did not look properly then. So we already got it. And POM, we don't need extra setting. So look at it. The beauty of the field level injection is that your traveler depends on vehicle. Oh, am I breaking again? My voice is breaking again?
No, a little bit for a second. It's okay.
Not right now.
Because I'm not speaking. I'm just joking. Is it manageable or guys?
Manageable in my.
Okay, let's try. Okay, I don't know why though. I can try something. 1 second. Okay, So here, traveler has a field called vehicle, right? So we are passing that vehicle as part of the constructor here. In a different example, we are passing this vehicle as part of the setter method. So this is called constructor injection. But what Spring says later on is that you don't need it. You don't need this guy. Okay? If you are just looking, if you are just looking, if you are just using a component or spring managed bean to be injected into your into another spring managed beans, you do not need a constructor, you do not need setter anymore. You can use just a simple field level injection. You just say, especially with annotations, look at how simple this one is. All you are saying is that, hey, just auto wire a vehicle into me. You need to say that your travel is also a spring managed bean. How do you say that? You can say that with one of these annotations by specifying at component or at repository or at service or at controller. You are saying that it doesn't matter which annotation you're using. You can use for your DAOs also, you can use at service. For DAOs also, you can use at component or at controller. It does not matter. Spring does not care. But if you use properly at repository, we used to call this data access object pattern, right? So we have used this name DAO for about, I don't know, maybe a decade. And later, Martin Fowler, I mentioned his name several times. So he wrote a book about application integration patterns or something like that. And he mentioned that, hey, what is this name? Data X object, I don't like it. Actually, it's a repository. So it could be a data repository, it could be any other repository. You're going there, you're going to repository to fetch the data, to store the data, right? So why don't we call it? Why don't we call this DAO as a repository? So ever since, DAO and repository, these are the two names. They are interchangeable. They are used interchangeably. And repository interchangeably. So that is why they said, hey, let's use this at repository. Okay. And repository is nothing but the DAO, and at service for the service layer, at controller. This is mainly for readability. You can use any annotation, but your class will tell very clearly that it's a service, or it's a DAO, or it's a web controller, or it's a generic component. Here, Traveler doesn't fall under DAO. Traveler doesn't fall under service layer. It doesn't fall under web controller layer. So it's a component. That's why I have used this component. So by saying at component, by declaring it with this one of these annotations, at component, at repository, at service, at controller, you are telling Spring that, hey, please, I'm your baby. So please manage the life cycle of me. So when Spring manages the life cycle of Traveler, Spring will automatically inject the appropriate vehicles, appropriate dependencies too. So when you say vehicle is auto wired, what Spring does is, do I have any bean that is of the type vehicle? Do I have any bean both through XML and annotations? It will combine all the beans that are configured in XML and also the beans that are configured through annotations. It will combine both of them and say that, hey, do I have any bean with this type? Meaning any directly vehicle class or any of the sub classes of vehicle. So do I have any one of them? If so, it will inject it, and it will automatically do it by type. Yes, it does auto wiring by type. What happens if I have two implementations? You can specify that using something called a qualifier. We'll talk about that later. Okay, are we clear so far? This is how we say that. So traveler, and then now let's go to vehicle. Hey, what do you think now? Do you think it works now? If you ask traveler, your vehicle will be injected now? Is your vehicle going to be injected automatically into traveler now? It is going to be injected, yes, because in Spring Config XML you have a bean. If I take this out, what happens? If I take all of this out, what happens now? Do you think Spring will inject it here, vehicle? It will not. It will? It will not inject. The reason it cannot inject is because, can anyone tell me? Because there is no Spring Manager bean at this point in Spring world or in the bean world that is of the type vehicle. So what do I have to do here? Let's say I want Spring's life cycle to be managed by vehicle. I want bus to be declared as a Spring Manager bean. What should I do? Not in XML world, but in annotation world, what should I do? Declare it with one of the annotations. Now bus will be automatically injected into vehicle. Bus will be injected in automatically into traveler here. When you say vehicle.start, it says that bus starting, bus driving, bus stopping. You want to see that? Let's look at it. Now, I'm not doing this vehicle. I'm just doing just traveler. Let's wait on this traveler guy, traveler 2 guy. Okay. Oh, I didn't tell you. I told you the main part. Now when you say, oops. Now your traveler is a Spring Managed bean, right? Oops. What happened to my code here? Traveler is a Spring Managed bean, right? So what happens here if I instantiate traveler t equal to new traveler t dot travel? So what happens in this case? Does Spring come into picture here? Does Spring come into picture here? Because you are instantiating on your own, so Spring does not inject the dependencies into Traveler. No. So what do you have to do for that? You have to load the Spring config XML and ask Spring, hey Spring God, can you please give me my Traveler? So you just ask for it. New class path XML application context Spring config XML, and now say context. Now context, can you give me the bean of the type traveler? We already talked about two ways of getting it, and one way of getting it is, hey, can you give me the traveler for me? Okay, and now t.travel. That's it. You don't need any configuration in your Spring config XML except one line. What is that one line? You need to tell Spring that, hey, I'm enabling the annotation based configuration, so please scan all the classes in my class path and or within the package. Actually, you will specify the package and say that please look for all the classes within this package and look for any Spring managed beans. How does Spring look for any Spring managed beans? By looking for one of these annotations: at component, at service, at repository, and at controller. Okay, all you need to tell is that it's very simple. We need, like how we have the beans here, we need one more right click. And then I want to add I need to add one more namespace here. Show request mappings, or go here, go to namespace. See here, I want this context namespace. So please include context namespace for me. Now Spring context has already been introduced. Now all I need to do is that, see this one, just one simple node, context annotation. Within the context annotation, context namespace, this namespace concept is actually, as I told you, this is part of XML. XML has a concept called namespace. So you can define various nodes within the namespace. Namespaces are like Java packages. Okay. So here you are saying that, or you can even by heart this one. This is just outside the actual discussion, so don't even worry about it. This one line is the way we tell Spring that please, okay, please look for com.training. Please look for all the classes within this com training package, com.training.star. Everywhere within all the sub packages underneath that, please look for Java classes. Please look for Java classes that are annotated with one of those stereotyped annotations, and then load them as Spring managed beans, because I'm not going to specify them in Spring config XML because I think that's boring way of doing it. I don't like it. Now let's go. Make sense? Simple. Very, very, very slick, right? And especially with this field level injection, I love it. Look at it. You did not provide the vehicle through the constructor or setter, nothing. Using reflection, Spring automatically brings here, when Spring comes here to, at the time of instantiating or at the time of providing the dependencies to Traveler, it says that, okay, Traveler, you depend on vehicle looks like you are, and you are asking me to automatically provide the wiring for you. Sure, let me look my bag here and see if I have any beans of the type vehicle. Oh yes, I have it. Then how many do I have? Oh, bus guy. I have this bus guy at component. Okay. Okay, let me repeat what I was just saying for the last couple of minutes. So here in Traveler demo, you are loading the whole Spring config XML, and you are asking for a bean. Hey, Spring God, can you give me a bean of this type, Traveler type? Then it will go and say, hey, how many beans do I have here? Okay, let me check. I have one bean of this type. See here? And then I'll try to instantiate this guy, and then realize that, oh, no. Wait, I will instantiate it. I'll go ahead and do a Traveler T equal to new Traveler. But I see that this guy depends on vehicle. First, let me instantiate vehicle. Okay? And let me see how many beans do I have of the type vehicle. Looks like I have only one here. See here, this is the Spring managed beans. At component is what telling me that, me meaning Spring here, at component is what, or one of the stereotyped annotations is what telling me that you're a Spring managed beans. You are asking me to manage the lifecycle for. Sure, I'll manage. So first I will instantiate bus and then provide it. How do I provide it? There is no constructor, there is no setter. How do I provide it? Come on, this is a private field. It's not even visible. How do I provide it? Can anyone answer that question? Anyone in the class? Spring is not.
Venkat, I'm not following too well.
You're not following it.
Actually, I'm not following too well. You teach on, but what I'll ask you to do after a logical breakpoint, if you can just integrate together what just a summary of what you taught last class and this class, because the whole thing is not gelling too well actually. Just a summary later on. Teach on, keep teaching,
Okay.
but later on, just summarize it together. I think then it'll be okay.
Probably let me ask everybody to. Okay, let me stop here actually, the annotation concept for a second or anything. Let me close this guy. So the XML way of doing things, right? So how do we specify? See, we have a class called vehicle here, right? Actually, we have an interface called vehicle and 3 implementations of it: bus, car, truck. And traveler depends on vehicle, right? We wanted to do the code to interface. We do not want to specify. Traveler does not want to get his own dependency. That is where we started, right? So when we say travel, if you remember it, we'll say that vehicle v equal new bus, right? This is where it all started. So traveler can get his dependency. So traveler can get his vehicle and then start it, drive it, and stop it. But we didn't want to do that, mainly because to avoid the tight coupling. So your traveler is tightly coupled with the implementation of the vehicle. We didn't want to do that, right? I think I want to know sooner, probably, rather than waiting until a few more minutes. So I think that helps me to probably stop it at a logical stop point. So anyone, I'm just saying. So traveler depends on vehicle, and traveler should not get its dependency. Rather, somebody should provide it, and that providing the dependency can be done using the constructor. Remember, Spring was not even in the picture. We said that in a traveler demo class. Remember, we wrote this code. Traveler t equal to new traveler. So before this, obviously, we have to do vehicle v equal to new bus, right? And then we pass this v here. So now traveler can travel without having to know what vehicle has been given to him. So traveler says that, you know what, I don't care whether it's a bus or it's a car or it's a truck. Any classes of the type vehicle is fine with me. So please go ahead and give me the vehicle. I'll just travel. So providing the dependencies, these dependencies should not be retrieved. Rather, dependencies should be provided to a component. And how can the dependencies be provided? At the time of instantiation itself. When you instantiate travel itself, you can give the vehicle, or in some cases, that's what we did with Traveler 2, right? In some cases, what we can do is that you can instantiate it and then call the setter method, set vehicle V. So you can do one of these ways. This is dependencies. You are giving the dependencies at the time of construction itself. In another fashion, you're constructing him first and then giving him the vehicle, or giving him the dependencies by calling these setter methods, right? So we have two styles, constructor injection and then setter injection. Now what I'm saying is that, or before I talk about the annotation based, I want to talk about something called auto wiring. So here we provided the dependencies ourselves. Now Spring is not in the picture yet. Later in between we introduced Spring. In Spring, this wiring is going to be done by Spring, but we will declare this guy in Spring config XML. We will declare this guy in Spring config XML, and we say that at the time of construction, please provide the bus. At the time of construction, please provide the truck. Or if it is a setter method, we use something called property, right? Look at it. So we defined vehicle, we defined traveler, and we are saying that please provide this particular vehicle to this guy. So car is being given to traveler here. And here also, the car is being given to this guy, traveler 2, and his name also is being given. So this is what the dependency injection. So dependency, so your vehicle is injected into traveler through constructor. Your vehicle is injected through setter to traveler 2. Are we on the same page so far? To get an idea, I can even step back at this point too. And,
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Which is
Clear. Yes, yes.
Excellent. So I think now I got it. Now, my point now is that we are providing these dependencies. See here, we are defining a bean here, right? I'm saying if you have 1,000 classes, it is extremely hard to define all these beans in XML and also provide the dependencies. It will quickly become unmanageable. You cannot manage that code base. It will be that ugly. Okay? To mitigate that problem or to fix that problem, what Spring did is, and also 90% of the times, it's one interface, one implementation. Here we have three implementations, making sense, but 90% of the times, it's actually one interface, one implementation. So in that case also, I have to define all these beans, and then I provide it. Can't you just load by yourself? What Spring's response was, yes, I will load it. I will provide. You don't need to provide this verbose XML to me to say that traveler needs a car. There is another way. Okay, first of all, this is a simple Spring managed bean car, right? You delete this line of code and you just say that like this. You just say that just by defining at component annotation or one of those 4 annotations, it doesn't matter which one it is, just by defining one of these annotations, Spring will understand that this car, this is exactly same as defining this line of, so defining a bean. This line of code in XML and this annotation are exactly same. Let me repeat that. This line of code, you do not need to provide it. Okay, I'm removing it because I replaced it with my fancy annotation. Are we on the same page so far? I'm really glad you guys asked.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
So did you understand this line of code is exactly same as this one? You don't need this bulky XML anymore. Which one is simple? Tell me. Let's make it more conversational. So yeah, which one is more, which one is better in your opinion at least?
This one.
Annotation.
This one.
It's a simple, right?
Annotation.
I agree. It's very simple. So now
If
what I'm
I will go by bus, then we create their component, right?
see
In
here,
bus class.
bus also you can do it.
Okay.
Bus also you can do it. Okay, and then you may be asking, hey, I want bus and car to be both of them spring managed beans, but I want to give bus to traveler. How do I give? That's I will defer it for now. I will worry about it. We will worry about it after probably 40 minutes. First, let's master this guy. There is only one interface, one implementation. There is only vehicle and bus. Okay, let's master this concept first. So I have taken that line of code from XML and replaced it with at component. At component is nothing but, hey, Spring, this is a Spring managed bean. It's nothing more, nothing less. Now, there is a traveler guy also, right? Now, do I want to do this bean ID equal to traveler class equal to this one? Do I want to do that? Nope.
No.
What do I want to do that? What do I want to do that? In a Spring,
Annotation field.
exactly, and just say that at component. This is same exactly as this line of code. I'm sorry. This is exactly same as at component or any of those annotations, whatever makes sense. Okay, it tells you just by looking at traveler, oh, this is a component. You know, if at all it's a DAO, traveler DAO, you just say that at repository. Developer knows that, oh, this guy is a repository, meaning it's a DAO. Yeah, let's say if it's a traveler service and just say at service. Okay, it's a service. It makes sense, right? Just for readability. So it's the same. This is also a Spring managed bean. Now, see here, traveler is also a Spring managed bean here in a regular XML world. At the construction time, you're passing the vehicle. So traveler depends on vehicle. We know that, right? What I'm now saying is that you don't need this guy. If you are just doing it for Spring purpose, you don't need this guy. Take out the constructor. Then you may be asking immediately, okay, it is a private vehicle and you never did anything like this. You know, you are not instantiating. Okay, even Spring earlier we used to do it here through the constructor or setter, but we don't have a constructor, we don't have a setter. Then how can anyone provide anything? Well, all you do is, since you're removing this line of code here, constructor or property, you're saying that, hey, you know what? I'm not using constructor. I'm not using setter. I'm using a field level injection. That's what they call it. So all you need to say is just say at auto wired. With this annotation, you are telling Spring that please give me vehicle. Now, tell me, in object orientation, in object-oriented principles, either you should pass the dependency through constructor, or you should have some setter or some other behavior you need to provide vehicle. This is a private field, and how can Spring provide vehicle to you? This is a private. Can anyone read outside of traveler? This guy? Can anyone read outside of it? No, nobody can read it, right? Because this is a private. Then how can Spring do it? Well, Spring can do it. I mean, you can do it too. You can write Spring framework, or you can not you can do literally write. There's no magic there if we understand the basics. What that one is? Reflection.
Reflection.
Yes, good job. Reflection. Reflection is the most powerful tool in Java. Using reflection, you can read the fields also, even if they are private. You can read them. You can even set them using reflection. So they're using reflection, and they said that, hey, to make your life easy, you can definitely use the old styles. Don't get me wrong. You can definitely use constructor. You can definitely use setter. You can definitely use XML. All of that you can use it. But to write less code, to write elegant code, that is Spring's bold statement, right? We make Java development easier. So to do that, you don't need constructor, you don't need setter. You just say, you declare your field, and you just tell me that you depend on it. How? You just say that at AutoWire. You know what Spring does now? Hey, this poor traveler depends on a vehicle. Let me see what I have in my bean factory to inject you. Understand that statement. What beans do I have in my bean factory that I can inject? Meaning, how many beans do I have of the type vehicle? I'm underlying that of the type meaning any of the subclasses or any of the implementations of this vehicle interface or any of the subclasses of this vehicle class, if at all vehicle is a class. So how many classes can go into this one? And now it will look at it. Okay, how many do we have now at this point? We have bus, or we have only car. We have only car, right? Understanding it? Let's have incremental talk. Are we clear so far?
So far, yes.
Very good. Now, is it fair to say that in Spring Config XML, I can remove this guy now? Because I specified through annotations? Make sense? And now, in Traveler 2 also, I can do the same thing. In Traveler 2, I'll just say that at component, right? And vehicle is, I need this one to be auto wired, right? You can actually specify the name also, okay? But something like this can be done, relatively easy using the properties, etc. So that's why I'm taking it out for now. Or you can even say at AutoWire. What's the big deal? Okay. So what are you saying here? Hey, I'm a Spring Managed Bean. And you're saying here that, hey, I depend on vehicle. Please give me the vehicle. And Spring says that, hey, how many beans do I have that are of the type vehicle? Okay, I have bus. Let me give him bus. How many beans do I have of the type string? I have one. Okay, let me give you that guy. Okay. In fact, do I have any Spring Bean of the type string yet? No, we don't have, right? So that's why that is a special, but that's okay. See here, now I can remove the setter. I can remove this guy also. Look at it now. How simple this one is. These are just private. Now, any vehicles? Do we have any vehicles here that are Spring Managed Beans? Yes, car is Spring Managed Bean. Now, can I safely take this guy? Is it fair? Yes. Now, the only thing we don't have at this point is this guy, right? We don't have any bean that is defined of the type string. We don't have any, right? So let's define that. Let's define that. How do we say? We can use old-fashioned bean. No problem. We can use old-fashioned bean.
Venkat, are you silent or is it a break?
No, I'm just
Oh.
silent.
Now we have become a little scared
Oh
actually.
yeah.
But anyway, never mind, never mind. Go ahead, no problem.
Yeah.
Venkat, one question may I ask at this point?
Yeah.
That is, see, so far what you've been teaching on Spring, this has nothing to do with our main topic that has been from the web technology side. That means browser passing message into servlets and things. But what you've been teaching in the Spring area has nothing to do with servlets that much. It's basically a strategy of tying together dependencies and things, right?
You got it. Nothing to do
So,
with the
okay,
web technologies. We have switched
okay.
the gears. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
Although we are going to make use of that more conveniently in the web technology, that's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we could have used Spring, so one can use it's more of a compiler issue. So we can use Spring for regular Java programming also, core Java too.
Which one? Spring?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Spring,
Okay.
absolutely, you can use it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
yes. Now, this name, let me differ it. We didn't talk about it yet, so let me differ it. I'm going with the simpler route here. Okay. And now, look at it. This Traveler 2 depends on vehicle. And now, how many vehicles do we have? How many types of vehicles are? How many classes does Spring have of the type vehicles? We have only one, which is car, right? So now, what you do? Do we have anything in XML? The whole XML has been converted into annotations. Now tell me, this is where we stopped earlier, right? So now, does that make sense to everybody? Like, we can talk about it more, or we can talk about any of the topics one more time. No problem at all. But does that make sense? Or Jyoti, does it make sense now?
Yeah, so far.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Madhavi?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Uma, make sense now?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Now, what are we doing now? In the namespace, I'm adding one more namespace. Okay. And now all I'm doing is that just one line of code. So if you have 1000 beans in your project, all of that can be replaced in XML with just one line of code. I'm not saying that you are eliminating XML completely. You can even eliminate that. That's a different story. I'm not going to talk about that. There's something else configuration called Java config that they introduced in 3-ish. Okay, I'm not going to talk about that. But your XML is going to have just one line of code. You may be asking, hey, would I ever use XML-based configuration, XML-based specifying the beans or creating the beans like this? Okay, yes, you do. Let's say Showan has given us a jar file. Okay, he built some smart component and okay, and he did not use Spring. He used regular style, and then we need to use his component. Then how do we do that? We can't go to his classes and say at repository, at component. It doesn't make sense, right? In fact, we don't have source code to do that. We don't want to do that. That's a very bad idea. So in that case, you define your beans. Just say that bean ID equal to something like credit card validator. Let's say he wrote some nifty credit card validator. Okay, some class equal to whatever in his jar file is com.shown. Okay, credit dot blah credit card validator. And now you want to provide this credit card validator. Let's say you need to provide certain things. You need to call the setter methods and do it. Sure, use property. Or you need to call this credit card validator constructor with something, then use constructor arg. So every time you do property name equal to something ABC, then it will call the set ABC method on this one. We know that. And let's say you depend on credit card validator in your class. You don't need to do anything. All you do is private credit card validator, right? And then just say at auto ask Spring. Spring will provide because you declared or you defined this particular bean through XML. So what Spring does is Spring combines both the lists, both the baskets, all the beans that it has gotten through XML and all the beans that it has gotten through annotations. It combines both of them into one basket, and then you can depend on any one. It will just match, it will nicely wire it for you. Understand now? Let's talk again. Understand, everybody? So all we need to say is that just say in which package. Hey, com.training package, every class and every sub package within this base package, please go look for all the classes that are annotated with one of those annotations at component, at service, at controller, and at repository. Okay, and for all those beans, it is going to take care of the dependencies and it is going to give you all of those beans. Now whenever you ask Spring, hey, can you give me that bean, it is going to give that bean with all the dependencies injected into that. That is the beauty. Now did we get that? The same concept. If A depends on B, B depends on C, and now you ask A, it instantiates C and give it to B, and then it instantiates B and it give it to A, and then it is going to give you fully loaded A object. Now, are we on the same page? Everybody? Now, you don't need a vehicle, you don't have any constructor, simple code, right? You agree with the simple code? Otherwise, Spring people will cry. Are you also in agreement that, it's traveler, this vehicle is auto-wired, null pointer exception. So what does it mean? At line number 13, null pointer exception, what does it mean? Can anyone tell me? Without knowing whether it is a Spring or whatsoever it is, I got a null pointer exception at line number 13. What does it mean?
That means you have passed this thing. It's expecting an object, but you have not passed the object actually.
No, very, very straightforward. I just gave you this one and I got a null pointer exception. What does it mean?
No instant for the vehicle.
No instance, yeah. There's no vehicle.
Right, say that. Put it differently. Vehicle is now. Null pointer exception. This guy is now. Null dot any method. Null dot any method will throw MPE, right?
Yeah, the object is not there. That's what I said in the beginning. The instantiation hasn't happened. That's my opinion.
No. See, that's all why part of it. I'm saying
Okay.
that's all why part of it. I'm not asking why.
Uh-huh.
See, without looking at it, I don't have instantiation. I don't know anything. I didn't tell you the context, Sean. Just I highlighted just this line of code. I put it here. I don't know where I picked it from. You know what I'm saying? I don't know where I picked it from. Vehicle.start. Somewhere I got it from Google. Okay.
Okay.
If this method threw me, sorry, this line of code, this is only, that's all we have in this line of code. I got null pointer exception. What does it mean? Simple. You have a dot, object reference dot method. So your object reference is
Vehicle
now.
null.
It's simple.
Yeah, that's what I said exactly. The vehicle does not exist. There's no object.
Right. Vehicle is now.
Yeah, that's what I said. No object is there. I
Okay.
think you cannot hear me. That's what's happening.
Okay. Okay. No, I was looking for just vehicle is now. Simple. That's my point. That's all.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what do we say now? Traveler, right? So now how do we say? Now tell me, one of you, so what do I do now? I have a traveler spring managed bean and I have a vehicle. So vehicle, traveler depends on vehicle. So what do I do now?
First, let's load the configuration.
Can I do
You have to
okay,
instantiate-
R.
Yes, you have to do that.
Let me rephrase it. Traveler shown equal a new traveler shown dot travel. Why did it throw null pointer exception? Anyone? And
Traveler.
It happens.
Traveler.
Let me give it to someone else. Chance, Shailaja, no.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Can I say, Venkat?
Anyone else though before?
Okay.
And this is the popular error, not the null pointer exception. I'm not talking about null pointer exception, but this is very usual exception in case of Spring. Anyone wants to try? Okay, Shailaja, go ahead.
Yes, Venkat, because you are instantiating with the interface. Can you go for traveler class?
You are instantiating with interface. That statement itself is not correct, right? Can you instantiate an interface?
No, that's what it is saying. Also, and one more thing.
No. Let's not talk about one more thing. First, let's get clarify on that one statement. That's not correct.
Yeah, sorry. Interface never instantiated.
Right. So that itself is not correct. So let's hang in there. Anyone else? No, that's not the reason. I'll take you to line number 13. So vehicle is. So why did we say line number 13 is throwing null pointer exception? Vehicle dot start. Simple. Vehicle is now. That's what Sean was saying. Everyone was saying, right?
Yes.
So now.
Because it is private.
Now I'm asking, why is vehicle now?
Because it's a Spring, right? It has a command with the @ of component, and also we did not specify that vehicle instantiation.
I want to do it Spring way, right? See here, Spring is nicely. Spring is going to auto wire for me this vehicle, and my traveler is a Spring managed bean, right? Traveler is a Spring managed bean. Understand, every one of you. I need everyone's input here. Traveler is a Spring managed bean, and one of the vehicles, which is car, is also a Spring managed bean. So I'm assuming that your car is of the type vehicle. So I'm assuming that my car would have been injected nicely here by the time I call my travel method, and vehicle should never be now. But why? Sorry.
Can you open Spring config?
Spring config is fine. Let me say Spring config has no issue.
Okay.
Okay.
Look at it one more time. Look at these two lines of code one more time, everyone, and and tell me if there is a problem here.
Yes, there is a problem with the new. We don't have to use a new keyword here. We have to get the bean from the spring rather than creating
Precisely.
the.
You are 100% right. You got your traveler, right? You got your traveler. When you instantiated traveler, spring is not in the picture. Spring does not, you are not asking spring for traveler. You built your traveler. If you built it, then you need to provide the vehicle. That's your responsibility. Spring is not even in the picture. Anywhere spring is spring in the picture? Nope.
No.
No.
Spring is managing the life cycle of traveler, and spring is managing the life cycle of one vehicle, which is car, right? Traveler depends on vehicle, which is car. This car would have been injected to traveler and given it to you if you had asked spring. Spring knows it, but you did not ask spring.
That's why I'm saying application content.
Oh,
Context
okay.
we are
Okay.
using.
Sorry, I did not hear. So, but did you understand what I'm saying here? This is a very, very common problem. Even with experienced people I've seen, hey, why am I getting this? This is not the one. They will get one exception. It's like a bean creation exception. It says that I'm sorry, I don't find any dependencies. Why am I getting this? Because when you say new, you're not asking spring. Spring is not even in the picture. So you should never get it. You have to ask spring. How do you ask spring? Application context equal to new, class path,
Class.
XML, application context, and then your config location, spring config XML, right? And then now you ask context dot get bean. Give me the bean of the type traveler. When you ask it, you don't need to ask, hey, can you give me the fully loaded bean? You don't need to ask. It will give you the fully loaded, meaning it will give you traveler with all the dependencies. Okay? Traveler with all the dependencies. What are the dependencies of the traveler? What are the dependencies of the traveler? Traveler depends on vehicle, and that vehicle is going to be wired and given it to you. That vehicle is going to be wired into the traveler, and that traveler will be given to you. That's it. Got it? Now, everybody, are we on the same page?
Yeah. Yes, it's clear.
Whatever we did on XML, we did through annotation, and we are on the same page now, right? Everybody. Anyone having any little bit of doubts? Any part that I can explain one more time? It's paradigm shift. I didn't get it until after I read that Spring in Action book. It's a very nice book. So I encourage all of you to buy that. You should have that book in your bookshelf. So, okay, you got it now, right? Now, here in the spring days, I need to tell you one thing that a lot of people know. Whatever I told you, a lot of people know it, okay? But a lot of people don't know this. We used to define all these beans in Spring Config XML. And I told you in the bean world, every bean has a bean ID, right? So now tell me one thing, how many beans are there in the bean world at this point? How many beans are there in the bean world at this point? We definitely have traveler. We definitely
Three.
have
Three
car.
beans.
What is the third one, Sean?
Bus.
Bus is not a spring managed bean. It doesn't have that annotation.
Okay.
But traveler 2 has that
Then
annotation.
Traveler 2.
Yes. Traveler 2
okay. Yeah.
has annotation. So now you can say that, hey, Venkat, you told me that you don't need to define it in Spring Config XML. I like that. But you said in the last class that every bean that you define in Spring Config XML, there is an ID. So here, I'm just saying at component, and net component are one of those annotations. So these are Spring managed beans. Now tell me, Spring is going to load all of these ones as if you had defined in Spring Config XML. Even though you did not define them, Spring is going to behave exactly same. Now, hey, what are the IDs of those beans? Let's say there is a traveler 2. What is the ID? What is the ID of those beans in the case of annotation? Look at here. Pre-instantiating singletons. I'll talk about that, the scope in a second. Defining beans. Car, traveler, traveler 2. So your class name will be the ID, only the first letter will be lowercase. Is your ID of this particular bean. And this is the ID of traveler class. And this is your car class. Okay. I'm just telling you, it will be handy later on when you debug certain issues. Now, anyway.
Can you say that again? You said car, traveler, and traveler 2.
Okay, Uma, yes. You're asking a question.
Yeah. So you were explaining something about the car, traveler, and traveler 2. Can you please?
No, all I'm saying is that in Spring Config XML, bean ID equal to Uma, class equal to car. I can do this, right? So this particular car, when it instantiates it, this particular bean is going to have identity from here onwards, Uma. If somebody asks for bean with the ID Uma, I'll give this particular car instance, right? But we are not defining it, so we can put any ID here. Doing this explicitly with annotation based configuration, right? So how does Spring do it? So what kind of ID does it use it? Well, the ID is used your class name, exactly your class name, but your first letter will be lowercase. That's all I'm saying.
Okay,
Got it?
Thanks. Yeah.
I wanted to say one more thing. Let's say now vehicle, right? How many vehicles do we have here? We have bus, we have car, we have truck. But how many Spring managed vehicles do we have? How many Spring managed vehicles do we have? We have only car. Yes. Now let's make my bus also Spring managed. I want my bus to be Spring managed. I want my car to be Spring managed. I want my truck to be Spring managed. Seeing this S here, I'm not sure whether it is really visible or not. S, it is putting S there if it's a Spring managed bean. Look at it now. After you save it, there is an S. If I remove it, that S is gone. Look at it, right? So now how many truck is also Spring Manager bean, right? Now let's see how it works, our traveler demo. It failed. Okay, let's read the error properly. It's a big fat error. You'll always see this one. You'll always see this one. Error creating bean with traveler. Hey, you're asking for a traveler object here. You're asking for a traveler, or actually it doesn't even go this line. It actually your Spring tries to load this XML. When it loads this XML, at that time it tries to instantiate this bean. It says that error creating bean with traveler. Injection of auto-wired dependencies failed. Nested exception is bean creation exception. Could not auto-wire field. Private vehicle. Okay. Your COM training Spring traveler vehicle. Nested exception is no unique bean definition exception. No qualifying bean of type vehicle is defined. Expected single matching bean but found 3: bus, car, truck. I'm sorry, boss. I'm supposed to find one of the implementations of vehicle. 3 of them. Auto wiring by type. I found 3 beans that are matching the type vehicle. Bus, car, truck. Those are the bean IDs. Okay? So what does it mean? It says that, sorry boss, I'm trying to inject this guy here, but unfortunately I found 3 of them. Okay, which one do you want? How do we specify that? Well, you can specify that using, you can use another annotation called qualifier, and then you can specify whatever the bean ID that you want to use it. That is why I mentioned this. Please understand the bean IDs, how the bean ID works in case of annotations. So the bean ID works. These are the 3 bean IDs: bus, car, truck. So your class name except the first digit. The first digit is lowercase. That's all. Now let's look at it. Oh, let's look at it. Did I not specify that? At auto wired, at qualifier of the vehicle. Oh, okay. It's now it must not have failed at the traveler. See here. Now traveler is good. Error creating bean with name traveler 2. Now this guy is failing. Traveler 2. Because you said vehicle is auto wired, but I found 3 of them. Which one do you want? Well, you can use this annotation called qualifier. I'm qualifying. Please give me a car. Or you can say a bean with the ID bus. That's it. So we gave car to traveler. Now you can say, hey, take bus. Bus, no, take truck. And one more small point is that if at all you don't like the bean IDs that are automatically given, in the case of car, what is the bean ID? CAR, everything lowercase, your class name and the first letter of your car will be in lowercase. If you don't like it, if you don't want Spring to give the bean ID automatically in component, you can specify That's like that. You can specify anything. Earlier, Uma was asking the question related to it. You can say that now. Okay. So, truck. Now, if you don't want truck, but you want Uma. What do you mean Uma here? You know what I mean there, right? Which bean ID has got that name? Car. So car is what we gave Uma. Make sense? Okay. How many of you understood? Any parts you want me to reiterate?
Can you please go to traveler demo?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, no. The other one.
You mean traveler.java? Okay.
Yeah.
So here you are saying that, hey, can you please give me the bean with the ID Uma? That is what you are saying here.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. And now, which bean has that ID here? Whatever the bean ID that is that convention that Spring uses, I don't want it. I want this car to be called Uma. So if anybody asks with this ID, then I want you to give it. That's what it means. Make sense? Madhavi.
That means both bean ID will be same in traveler and in car. There you wrote it here Uma, and traveler also there Uma. So both ID will be same.
You tell me.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, it will be same.
In Spring World, this is the bean in the Spring World, right? So how many beans do we have? Now we have 3 beans. Bus, Uma, Traveler, Traveler 2. Okay, we have 5. We have a bean with the name Bus. We have the bean with name Uma. We have the bean with name Traveler, Traveler 2, Truck. We have these 5 beans, right? Now, that is what you are saying here. If you don't give it, by default, this would have been replaced with car. C lowercase. Are you getting it? Madhavi. Now in traveler, what you are saying is, hey, I depend on vehicle, but I'm telling you which vehicle you want, you need to inject into me. Which vehicle is that? That is Uma. Meaning a bean with this ID Uma. Are you getting it? So which bean is actually named here Uma?
Yes.
This guy. No confusion, right? Madhavi there?
Yes.
You specified here, you are saying that, hey, give me that bean with the name Uma. And here you are saying that, here you are giving, hey, I am the bean. My name is Uma. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. I got it now.
You got it, right?
Yes.
Anyone? I mean, in fact, I'm stopping here. So I want you to really go home and understand this one. So we can take it slowly, no big deal. So let's understand this one. And then I want to introduce these concepts into our eShop. So what happens now is that, in fact, you can do this one. Okay, you can take this Spring Config XML. The reason I'm waiting to introduce this concept into eShop is because I don't want to do it in an old-fashioned way. I want to do it in a annotation way. So all these service classes will get @service annotations. All the DAOs, they get @repository. And in your servlet, what you have to do is, servlets are not @controllers because you don't have the life cycle. Spring does not have the life cycle on servlets. Who manages the life cycle of servlet, by the way? Anyone? Who manages the life cycle?
Servlet container.
You got it. Precisely. Servlet container manages the life cycle of the servlets. So since the servlets cannot be managed by Spring, your servlet has to exclusively call Spring container and say that, hey, application context, this is what you need to do it in your servlet. hey, application, get the application context and say, application context, can you give me the customer service, please? We have a service called customer service, I believe, right? Yeah. So customer service equal to context.getBean customer service dot class. Say service dot create customer or service dot get all customer. You call your method. When you got this customer service, what you would have gotten is you would have gotten the appropriate DAO already injected into it. That's the beauty of it. Because your DAO also should have that annotation called at repository. Does that make sense now? Everyone say it makes sense. If not, then I can explain. Can you do that though?
Yeah, it does make sense, but I have to go and no, I won't be able to do it right now. I have to really go home and watch your tape last class and this class.
Okay.
And then it'll make complete sense.
Absolutely.
I know about myself. I miss points. I mean, that's not your fault.
Oh,
so
no.
Do that.
No, this concept is like that, right? First time we are getting into it, so I can understand. You know, I got this one after years of doing and several books I read, so it's
Okay,
and
but we are getting that cumulative knowledge from you, so we are getting all at once. That part is advantageous for us, so it won't take that much time.
Right.
But I have to at least go over your tape once more.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, Antenna, you're speaking.
Yeah. So is eShop 3 the latest with the services and all that? That's where we can work Spring.
We have eShop 3, I believe, right?
Okay, so this
I think eShop 3. This is where we need to. I don't know. eShop 3 is what the latest one right now? You need to tell me. You guys need to tell me.
Uma, is that
eShop 3 because there is a service class, so eShop 3.
Okay, so eShop 3
eShop
Spring
3
has
SHOPPE.
Yeah, eShop is a different thing. That is a different one. Madhavi, let's not talk about it. ESHOPPE for now. So eShop 3 has a service layer. Now we can create eShop 4 or in eShop 3 itself. See, you're getting a oops.
No, only that day we create a service.
For which one we did? Shopping cart? Where did we create that service? We did not.
There is a service package.
Service package. There is a com.eshop.service and we create a 3 service: order service, product service, and customer service.
Right.
Customer service.
So we are not using that yet, or
yeah, we just stopped there, I think.
Okay, I don't want to see the DAO. Oh, here, look at it. This is what we are doing, right? Product service equal to new product. Of course, I inlined this one. Maybe I should have done this one to make it simpler. But I like inline code to an extent. That's okay. I can break this into 2 lines. That's fine. So product service equal to new product service and service.get by ID. So what I'm saying is I don't want new. I want this line of code to be replaced like this. Application context equal to new class path XML application context. Okay, we don't have Spring here. Okay, this is not even a Spring application. It's Apache's application. So new class path XML application context. This is what we need to do it. Spring config XML, or if you put it in web content, generally you put it in webinf. So /webinf/spring config XML. So now you ask context and say that, hey context, can you give me the bean which is of the type product service? Okay, I want this line of code here to be replaced like this. Exactly. I want this line of code is to be replaced with this one. And now your product service will have a at service annotation here. Okay. I mean, I know it doesn't have it, but I'm just saying. And then your DAO will have, your implementation class will have at repository annotation. That's it. Okay. And now here you will not get your DAO automatically. You just say that private. Am I confusing or is it easy?
Yeah, for me, you are good.
That's it. You got it now? Whatever we just did
Yes.
in a small world, I'm now putting that into our eShop. Can you guys do that? I'm not doing it. Can you guys do that? And
Sure.
here you
We'll
will
try
learn.
to do that in the collaboration probably.
Sure.
One of the things.
Yeah, we can try.
Because we will have time, yeah, and then we'll discuss.
Okay. So inject that
Maybe
here.
one thing here in the project, we just simply add the jar for the Spring,
Yes.
and then it will be a Spring project. That's it.
Yep. In your POM, you have to do it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And then it will bring. You have to provide the dependency of Spring context, and then it will bring rest of the transitive dependencies automatically.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Check, please. Would you please check in?
Which one I will check
check
in?
Pause.
Three.
eShop 3 and
No, not this one, right? Not this one, because here this one I don't want to.
yeah. You can just check in this one, the Spring one, Feb.
I'll put this into. I'll not check in Spring 1 also. I'll put it into Spring 2, so that it will be nicely. Okay. So you have at component. We have at car. We'll quickly do it. At traveler we have it, and we have at auto wired. We have a traveler 2, and then at truck we have it. No, vehicle is an interface, so I don't need the traveler demo 2 now. Okay, Spring config XML, and it's definitely going to blow with the nope, because we're asking traveler, and traveler has a vehicle. Oh, save all, and then close all. Let me look at the Spring config XML once. Okay, everything in COM training. That's beautiful. Now traveler demo. Let's. Okay, it blew. Very good. Because it found 2 of them. So you can say that, hey, I need a bean with the ID, appropriate ID. So I'll say, please give me car, right? If you want custom names, you can definitely do it. So now I will check in this guy, Spring 2 Feb 2015. That's it.
All right, thank you.
No problem, sir.
Are we going to have class tomorrow or?
We need to talk about it. We need to talk about it. So just 1 minute.
I have some problem with my eShop.
Yeah, no problem. We'll talk. 1 second. Let me stop the recording for a minute. Not for a minute. We are done, right? So we'll talk about tomorrow's class. That's mainly